That's Friends of the Park.
All right, Curtis or Derek, are you available to do a sound check for me in the council chambers?
Sounds good, Nicole.
Wonderful, thank you.
All right, ready? All right. Good evening. Welcome, everyone, to the Tuesday, April 20, 2021 Urbandale City Council meeting. I'll call the meeting to order and ask the clerk to begin roll call, please.
Carberry Montgomery,
Here.
Caduce,
Here.
Obrecht,
Here.
Hoagie,
Here.
Russell.
Here.
Thank you.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Urbandale is a national leader in character counts, endeavoring at all times to promote and model the principles of trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship. In conducting tonight's meeting, we expect all participants to act in a respectful manner consistent with these principles. Item 2 is to approve the agenda. I'll ask for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Fogarty, second by Carberry Montgomery. Discussion, please vote. All right, that passes. Item 3, presentations. We do have 2 very special proclamations that we look forward to every spring. The first is the Earth Day proclamation, and I'm going to read that. And I know we have a couple members, Friends of the Parks here tonight. Now I'm going to present this to, and we're done. Whereas Earth Day was first celebrated in the United States on April 22, 1970, to raise awareness about a wide range of environmental issues and to inspire people to take personal action to address them. And whereas the 52nd Earth Day celebration will occur on Friday, April 23, 2021. And whereas the Urbandale Parks and Rec Department, the Friends of the Parks Committee, the Urbandale Tree Board, and the Parks Advocacy Coalition have joined together to sponsor Earth Day activities at Walker Johnston Regional Park, Waterford Park, Charles Gabus Memorial Tree Park, and Dunlap Park and Arboretum. And whereas Earth Day activities in the community will include park and creek cleanup, removing invasive species, tree planting, and tree care activities. And whereas many Urbandale local citizens will join this effort, and whereas the city of Urbandale desires to promote and educate residents about the environmental responsibility and stewardship during the month of April. Whereas in recognition of 2021 Earth Day, the Urbandale's Earth Day cleanup event will be held on Friday, April 23, 2021 from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Now therefore, I, Robert Andwig, Mayor of the City of Urbandale, on behalf of the Urbandale City Council, the Urbandale Parks and Recreation Department, and the entire community do hereby support the 2021 Earth Day cleanup event. And I know we have both from the tree board, some folks here, and Friends of the Parks. I think I've got the tree board proclamation next, or for Arbor Day, so I'm gonna present this to the Friends of the Parks, Bruce and Dennis, I'm sorry. We're both here from Friends of the Parks. I want to present this proclamation to you if you want to come up. It's good to have. We'll get everybody in here.
Like, what kind of photo are you going for, Bridget?
You know.
You don't want to photobomb it in the back.
She was trying to take a picture of the backside.
It's my view.
Yep.
I'm not that skinny. All right, and I'm going to read the Arbor Day proclamation next. Whereas the City Council approved ordinance number 2002-15, August 20, 2002, which created the Urbandale Tree Board as an advisory board to the Parks and Recreation Commission. And whereas trees conserve soil and water, clean the air, and provide comfort in their beauty, color, and shade, and make Urbandale a more pleasant place to live and work. And whereas through the dedicated support of the Mid-American Energy Trees Please Grant and the Tree Board, the Urbandale City Council the city of Urbandale is recognized as a Tree City USA community. Whereas the Urbandale Tree Board sponsors an annual community tree event to plant trees on public property during the National Arbor Day to ensure a greener, healthier tomorrow. And whereas in recognition of the 2021 Arbor Day, the Urbandale Tree Board will sponsor the following tree planting of 16 trees to be planted in the Colby Woods open space in Urbandale. Now therefore, I, Robert Andwig, Mayor of the City of Urbandale, on behalf of the Urbandale City Council, the Urbandale Tree Board, and the entire community, do hereby support Urbandale's 2021 Arbor Day tree planting at the Colby Woods open space located at Colby Woods Drive and Maple Drive in Urbandale. And I'm going to have the tree board folks come back up, and I'm going to present this to you. So. It's always a true sign of spring when we have Earth Day and Arbor Day, so thank you guys for all your work on that. All right, at this point, this is item 4 of the agenda. We are in citizens forum. This is the opportunity for the public to address the council on something that's not a part of tonight's regular agenda, and I'll ask if there's anybody online that would like to address the council tonight. If you're on your phone, if you can hit *6 to unmute yourself. Okay, hearing none, we will move on. Item 5 is the adoption of the minutes. First, the minutes from the April 6th meeting. Motion by Pogge.
Second.
Second by Obrecht. Discussion, please vote. That passes. And secondly, from the April 13 lunch and learn.
So moved.
Who said it?
Caduce.
Motion by Caduce.
I'll second.
Second by Carberry Montgomery. Discussion, please vote. All right, that passes. Thank you. Item 6 is the consent agenda. We have 14 items for approval.
I would move the consent agenda.
Motion by Russell. Second by Pogge. Discussion, please vote. All right, that passes. Moving on to public hearings. Item 7.1 is the Timberline Village Outlot Use Signage Amendment to the Planned Unit Development Master Plan at 142nd Street and Douglas Parkway. The public notice for this was published in the April 9, 2021 Des Moines Register. Ask any objections to that notice is published.
There were none.
It's for a motion and a second to open the public hearing. Motion by Pogge. Second by Caduce. Discussion, please vote. Okay, that passes. Introducing this is our Community Development Director, Steve Franklin. Steve?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council. We'll see if we can share a screen here and show you what we're looking at. Okay, so this is the northeast corner of 142nd and Douglas at the roundabout. You might remember just recently up in this corner of Outlot U, this is all of Outlot U between 142nd Street and a new 141st Street that's going to be built. This is where the senior living facility by Hubble site plan was approved recently. And the subject of this amendment is Outlot U, which is everything to the west of 141st Street. Outlot U has a total size of 4.27 acres. And really what this will accomplish is Kitty Academy came through, daycare up here in the corner. Because they're on a separate parcel, they would not, per the sign code, be allowed to be on a directory sign down on either Douglas or 142nd Street. So what this does is just amends the PUD slightly so that subject to what is in the sign code for compliant directory signage, it would allow anybody and any tenant in any building to go on those two signs. So it really removes the complication of this being if there was signage down here for Kid Academy being on a separate lot, that would be considered typically to be an off-premises sign. So Planning and Zoning Commission does recommend approval and be happy to answer any questions.
Go ahead.
So was it the PUD or the sign ordinance that caused this to come up in front of us?
It's the sign ordinance that creates the problem, but by amending the PUD, we can overcome that particular issue
Okay.
just on this parcel.
Any other questions from council for Steve? All right, we are in public hearing on this item. Would anybody from the public like to address the council on this item? Again, if you are on your phone, hit star 6 to unmute, or if you're online, just unmute yourself and recognize yourself, please. Okay, hearing none, then I'll ask for a motion in a second to close the public hearing.
I'll move to close the public hearing.
Okay, motion by Caduce. Second by Russell. Discussion, please vote.
Here it is.
All right, that passes. We have one item for consideration.
Move approval of council letter 6700.
Motion by Obrecht,
Second.
second by Caduce. Discussion, please vote. Okay, that passes. Item 7.2 is to consider the annexation moratorium agreement with the city of Waukee. The public notice for this was published both in the April 2, 2021 Des Moines Register and the April 8, 2021 Dallas County News. Ask for any objections to those notices as published.
There were none.
Ask for a motion and a second to open the public hearing. Motion by Pogge,
Second.
second by Obrecht. Discussion, please vote. That passes. Steve?
There we go. Okay, this item is to renew/extend our annexation agreement with the city of Waukee. The last one was approved, excuse me, back in 2001 and would expire, 2011, and would expire on July 11th. Been having conversations with Waukee. This agreement is proposed as exactly the same as the one that is about to expire. So this would re-up for another 10 years, which is the maximum time limit that the state allows. So would carry it through to April of 2031. And what the agreement says, here is the line. This is our western corporate limit, so 184th Street is right there, and this is the line that is half a mile north of Meredith and runs 4.5 miles to the west. And so again, this line is the exact same location as it was before, and the agreement states that Waukee agrees not to annex anything north of that line, and Urbandale agrees not to annex anything south of that line. So other than that, is identical to the previous agreement. I was able to confirm that Waukee did approve this agreement last night at their council meeting. So with your approval, the next step would be to get the document recorded and get a copy of the signatures to the City Development Board within 10 days. And Brad Dietz and I have talked about how to get that done. So be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Steve. Any questions from the council for Steve on this item? Again, we're on public hearing on this item. Would anyone from the public like to address the council on this item? Hearing none, ask for a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Motion by Pogie,
Second.
second by Obrecht. Discussion, please vote.
Nicole, my voting screen went away. I was trying to open something else. Yes, thank you.
Steve, while we had the map up, can you put the map back? I just had kind of follow up. Since we had the map.
First of all, what's the question, Dave?
I just, if you can put the map back up.
Yep. I'll just, I need to hit share again here.
There we go. Just kind of a general question. North of that line, right now, that's just all unincorporated Dallas County.
Correct.
And I don't want to necessarily use the term, but is it kind of up for grabs between us and Dallas County or Dallas Center and Grimes, or is there some kind of a understanding or agreement there?
Yeah, I mean, basically what this agreement does is indicates that on either side of that line, it's either going to be Urbandale or Waukee if they decide to, they have a desire to annex it in.
But how does Dallas Center
But
and
as long as it's
Grimes?
never, as long as it's never annexed in, then it just stays Dallas County.
Steve, do you have the map that shows the Grimes line?
I do not have that with me. I can
We
tell
just extended that agreement though. So we have a Grimes line as well. So we have a corridor.
Yeah,
correct. Yep, the Grimes line basically runs along Meadow Lane right here.
okay.
And it goes out, the current agreement that we're currently in right now, I believe comes to, I think it's right there. And what we are currently having discussions with Grimes is to extend that another 1.5 miles to the west, so it would come to right there.
That's right. We haven't extended, we're still,
Right, yeah, we're having conversations with them. Hasn't
when's
been
our
done yet.
deadline on that one?
That's coming up in July of this year.
All right, so we need to get that done
Yep,
too.
yep. Agreed.
All right.
So,
Do we
so
have anything
that's,
with Dallas Center?
we do not have anything with Dallas Center, no, but that, so that does, as the mayor's indicating, that kind of creates a corridor with a line here to where we can annex anything to the south, Grimes can annex anything to the north, and then the same thing with Waukee. So the Urbandale corridor basically becomes this area right in here.
All right, okay, thanks. That's just clarification. Sure.
Yep, and it's,
That hold true even for like those little fingers, what'd you call it, Meadow Lane to the east? like
Correct.
where
Yep,
you're-
yep. Well, these are, yes, the line would indicate that. So any of these properties here, they could just voluntarily request to come in and we could be able to go through that process. And a matter of fact, I'm trying to get a hold of Mr. Broderick's, Mrs. Broderick's son, and we may have something moving on this little area right here. But yeah, any of these areas south of the line, they could request to come in and we could go through that process. Yep. It's part of a voluntary annexation area.
And well, I guess thinking back to one other conversation, the kind of that western line, there seems to be kind of a natural boundary
Correct.
where we're talking to the end of Grimes. So if we go beyond that, we might have some increased infrastructure cost. So it may not be worth it for us to
Yep,
go
there's a
beyond.
little bit of a ridge line that roughly runs along through here, and you have to consider your sanitary sewer service as part of that, obviously. So that's part of why the line is where it is, yes.
Okay.
yep, so. At some point, we had to make some decisions on what's the natural place to keep extending services, exactly.
Yep,
And, you know, if you need to put in a third, well, we probably already gonna need to put in a fourth fire station at some point sooner than later, maybe, I don't know, not immediately, obviously, but if we keep extending west, then you gotta start looking at fire service farther west and everything else that comes with developing a city, so.
I know that the chief has had some very preliminary discussions with Waukee at some point. Would it make sense as their growth goes west and ours goes west, that you would have a similar relationship that we have now with Clive? Would they build it? Would we build it? Yet to be determined, but since we consider our successful venture with Clive, we don't see any reason why it couldn't have a successful venture with Waukee, for example.
But certainly different challenges in the way we've configured, the way Urbandale is configured compared to, say, an Ankeny that's more roughly square in shape. I mean, it does make for some unique, challenges to provide services for that city, so.
Yep. It's probably worth it in this upcoming strategic planning session this fall to begin having those conversations about, is there an interest to go west? And if so, how far west? And then how does that affect things like fire stations and things like that? Yep.
All right. Let's see, we did close the public, did we take the vote on it? I've lost track now.
We have not yet. We still need
All right, so
action
we
on
need
the
to vote on
resolution.
the item. I'll ask for a motion and a second on the item.
Resolution 125-2020.
Motion by Obrecht,
Second.
second by Caduce. Discussion, please vote. And that passes. Thank you. Item 7.3 is to consider the review of the Fisher property PUD in accordance with section 160.24, the Urbandale zoning code, and the public notice for this was published in the April 10, 2021 Des Moines Register. Ask any objections to that notice is published.
There were none.
Ask for a motion and a second to open this public hearing.
Move to open the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Obrecht, second by Carberry Montgomery. Discussion, please vote. It passes. Steve, back to you.
Got a photograph here I will show you that references where we're talking about. Okay, so this item is to consider the Fisher PUD with respect to section 160.24 of the Urbandale zoning code. In 2005, this property that you see outlined here in red was approved, was rezoned to a PUD. This bottom property is the property along Meredith here. This is Meredith, this is 170th. This is the new school up here. This bottom property is owned by Jim Fisher, and then these two northern properties are owned by Marvin Fisher, his father, and his wife. And what the rezoning did was establish a PUD that had about 32 acres of neighborhood commercial development and about 42 acres north of that. The commercial was through here and turned and went a little bit north, and then the rest of it was single-family residential development. Section 160.24 of the zoning code, there's a paragraph in there for validity, and what it says is that if nothing's happened after 2 years from the date of rezoning, it establishes that the Planning and Zoning Commission and the City Council can consider that PUD and decide what action, if any, could be taken. And so those choices include continuing the PUD with revised time limits, requiring that appropriate amendments be made or taken, continue the PUD zoning for part of the area with or without revised time limits, initiating a rezoning of the remainder to an appropriate district, or initiating rezoning of the entire parcel to an appropriate district. And those are all contained in that section of the zoning code. And at this point, with it being about 16 years since it was rezoned, there clearly are some different dynamics in play with respect to commercial development and residential development as well. So staff's recommendation at this point is for you to refer this back to the Planning and Zoning Commission to have a public hearing and kind of have a more in-depth conversation about whether the current zoning is still appropriate today, 16 years after it was approved. So be happy to answer any questions. As you all know, we're in litigation with these folks, and so Bob Layden and co-counsel Maria Brownell are here and can answer questions as well.
All right, thank you, Steve. Any questions?
So Steve, the Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing. Will we then hold a public hearing as well?
Recommendation is to send it back to the public hearing, send out the appropriate notice to all the surrounding property owners, follow our typical process, have a public hearing at P&Z, have them make a recommendation to you, and then bring it back before you for a public hearing, yes.
And if the recommendation is no change, it wouldn't come back to us?
Well, typically, no matter what the P&Z's recommendation is, you all then get to discuss their recommendation and decide if you would agree with whatever that is. But obviously, as outlined in that paragraph, there are 3 or 4 different options that are available to us. rezone it back to something completely different, don't take any action, or something in between.
I just have a question as to why this was brought up. I mean, there's other property that sits zoned a certain way for a long time with no development on it. We don't do anything. I don't want it to either in reality or in perception to be that we're in litigation with you, so we're going to make your life miserable by revoking your PUD.
Right.
And how do we get around that? Because it kind of looks like that.
Again, Steve, I can handle that. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we've been informed that they do not intend to do any development on this property, on either parcels of ground. And we think it's appropriate for the council and planning and zoning to take a look at this current zoning. And right now, if the council sends it back to the planning and zoning, we would anticipate having a May 24th public hearing before the P&Z. And then it would come before the council probably sometime mid-June at our council. And at that time, Ron, the council can decide whatever the council wants to decide. So we're not foreclosing anything. We're just sending it back to revisit this issue.
And as I understand it, and this is out of my league, let me stand up here, maybe this will help.
Well,
Okay, is that no matter what we zone it, they have a right to continue farming on it?
that would be correct.
Okay, because they'll be grandfathered in. Because I just want to make sure we don't get crossways with the letter that our mayor sent way back then saying you can farm for 1,000,000 years or
Yeah,
whatever.
it's fairly common to have PUDs be approved and then and they'll farm it for, say, a season until they get to that next construction season, and then they kick off the development within that PUD. From a staff's perspective, what makes this one different is going back 10 to 15 years, this is the only one that I can think of since the rezoning where nothing's happened. And again, the dynamics being along 170th Street with all the development south in Waukee, there are clearly some different dynamics in play that I think we should consider if something different is necessary.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further questions or comments from the council? Again, we are in public hearing on this item. Is there anyone from the public that'd like to address the council on this item?
I would.
Okay, can you please recognize yourself?
Yes, sir. This is Gary Guidelock. I'm an attorney with the Whitfield and Eddy Law Firm. I represent Marvin and Marilyn Fisher.
Okay.
I appreciate thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to address the mayor and the council on behalf of the Fishers. And I think that, and I apologize, I couldn't tell who made the comments or asked the questions, not being in public. I think it might have been Mr. Pogge. But there were a couple of issues raised by the council member that I think are very pertinent questions. When we were in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission about a month ago, we asked a couple of those questions as well. Specifically, why is this action being taken? It's our understanding, based upon information that we have received from the city, that the city has never undertaken a review under this section of the city code before. So I guess the question would be, why this property and why now? And I think the answer is pretty clear, as the council member mentioned, that this is retribution related to the litigation that's taking place. Secondly, reference was made to promises made by former Mayor Zahn when this property was annexed. And I think it's important to note that the agreement was not only that farming could take place, but that commercial zoning would still be allowed in there as well. So I would ask the council to seriously consider why this course of action is being requested at this time. Why with this specific property when it's never been done with any other property in the city? And I appreciate the opportunity to raise these concerns with the council. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Gary. Is there anyone else like to address the council on this item?
Yes, sir. My name is Casey Flaherty Tarpey. I'm from the Dentons Davis Brown Law Firm. I represent Jim Fisher.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. After, as discussed by Mr. Guidelock, my office requested records from the city of Urbandale on April 2nd, 2021. This was through an open records request. Specifically, we saw it each and every time the city has reviewed a PUD under City Ordinance Section 160.24, subsection F. Through this request, the documents revealed that this type of review has not been done to date. This is seemingly unprecedented, and it's our understanding that this only came after the parties have spent years in litigation. And as a result, we also do not agree with the recommended action at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to address the council on the item? Okay, hearing none, I'll ask for a motion and a second to close the public hearing.
So moved to close the public hearing.
Motion by Caduce,
Second.
second by Carberry Montgomery. Discussion, please vote. Okay, that passes. We have an item for
Let me address, since I'm quoted by the attorney for the people on the other side of this issue. I don't have any objection to us studying the issue. I think one of the issues that has to be studied is why we're doing something at all. And, 16 years sitting on a PUD, I think the question is, why did they get the PUD 16 years ago if they're not going to do anything? And things have changed a lot out there, so maybe it is time to look at it. But and as I understand it, we could send it back for an examination by P&Z and let them make a recommendation, and it'll come to us for a decision. And at that time, we can decide should it continue or not. So I'm fine with the action we're being asked to take today.
So is that a motion to?
Yeah, and with that, I'll make that a motion.
Okay. Motion by Poggi,
Second.
second by Caduce. Any further discussion?
There's Russell that seconded.
Oh, I thought you said that. I heard a voice right here.
Second.
All right. Motion by Poggi, second, my apologies.
I'm happy to second it, but David.
Anyway.
All the echo with the
It
plexiglass.
is. Motion by Poggi, second by Russell. Any further discussion? If not, please vote. It is hard to hear with the plexiglass. All right, that passes. All right, thank you. All right, moving on to item 8, to establish public hearings. First is item 8.1, to establish a public hearing for the Barrett Park Natural Playscape. And our Parks and Rec Director, Jan Herky, would answer any questions if there are. Thanks, Maria.
On Barrett Park, as you know, I sent an email out to pretty much everybody in the room. And as I said, I'm certainly struggling with the price tag. I'm not struggling with the concept. I'm not struggling with the location. I'm not struggling with the concept itself. But man, it's $500,000. And that's what I'm struggling with, guys, to be quite honest with you. And I don't know if there's another way around it or how did it get to this amount, but we're putting a park in on 7 acres and we're spending $500,000. That's my only angst. And I'm always conscious about the taxpayer's dollar. And it just seems to me that $500,000 for a park is a lot of money.
Jan, you want to respond first?
If I can share, I know that we presented, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, recall we presented this when we came for the approval of the design services as well as the 120,000 in the CIP. It's in the CIP is from the city's funding. 100,000 is a donation from the Barrett Family Foundation. Probably about 6 weeks ago when we came before you requesting of the funding from the CIP for adding a flushable restroom and shelter. And that's the significant increase. This is intended to be a regional park. It's 7 acres, but it is a regional amenity where the only other similar type concept is at Jester Park as well as the Brenton Arboretum. So it will be quite a unique park, and certainly something different than many of our parks. It does have a parking lot. It does have, as we have talked about, flushable restrooms. I know that was something in your strategic plan and our Parks and Recreation Open Space plan as a priority, as well as it was mentioned on the 1 cent sales tax ballot. So that's certainly, I know you think a restroom for $300,000. When you bring utilities and sanitary sewer and water and so forth to a site, that does increase the cost, but it certainly is a lot. I know that if you recall, we did a survey and got the community input of over 1,300 responses and very significant support and interest in this park. So be happy to answer any other questions you might have.
Dave, I guess my thought on it is, again, I understand the cost, and we all appreciate the cost to the taxpayers. I appreciate your comments, but it's not that the rest of the council, and certainly I don't appreciate that, but this is something that we've had in the CIP, and albeit it's not under one thing under Barrett Park, the entire cost of this was included in the CIP that we ultimately approved, and that's what we look at, and that's what we approve, and so, it's not inexpensive, but it's a significant investment in our park system, and something that's going to be well used, and something that I think has been asked for, rather than have portable toilets in all our parks. I think it's something that a basic need that, to be a basic amenity that the folks are looking for. So I support it.
Jan, one of the things you mentioned was bringing utilities into the site. Pretty much all around that, has it all been developed out around it? So that, say, there's a neighboring property that might bring the utilities closer if we waited just a little bit and our cost would go down.
Yeah, no, to the east is the creek area and then another part of the park, and then the residential development, obviously Waterford's to the north and 156th Street is to the west. So yeah, it's not like we have to bring utilities a mile away, but just bringing those to the site, but just the what it costs to do. We learned that for the Deer Ridge West and Murphy Park, where we just bid out and approved bids for similar type structures, and it was estimated at that cost as well.
And one of the things we talked about is also bringing in the internet or Wi-Fi capabilities. When we bring utilities like this, would that be one of these projects where we kind of start doing that?
Well, this one, again, where it's just an open shelter, and we had talked about bringing that capability, it's bringing the actual service to the site would be the significant. We can have this site where it has something that you can, like an open shelter, it's tougher because it doesn't have something enclosed that you can actually put the, I don't know the technology word, but
put
something enclosed that it's locked. This one you could. It's more of so would be ready for someday once the service is near that site. But then we had talked about too of Wi-Fi. I think we need more discussions of, is it larger parks like Walker Johnson and the large shelter as compared to all these smaller shelters? Most people have phones that have Wi-Fi and data and so forth. But this one will have the capability once the services are available. But it's the cost to physically bring those services. It's not like I can just put something on the wall and it's there.
Right. Well, it's just while you're bringing electrical, bring in the cable to the site too, because then putting up the port is an easy thing later on. So it's just, the cable's cheap if you're digging electrical. So.
And that's what, I know our IT director can articulate better than I can, but we do know that it is a desire.
Yeah, and the other is that, with little kids, it's the little kids that don't have the cell phone with data that need the Wi-Fi.
Right.
And that's what I assume this park is going to attract, is the little kids that have devices that don't have that data package to them, so.
If that's the case, can we get one at Cole Morgan Park? Because my daughter without cell access likes to spend a lot of time.
Yes.
I guess I just wanted to put in my 2 cents. I sent an email out responding to Dave, but as the sole representative on the council from Dallas County, I just want to remind everyone that as we continue to grow to the west, it's our responsibility, I believe, to continue to provide the amenities that the residents in Polk County, Urbandale have come to expect from Urbandale, that draw people to Urbandale. And I think we have a one-of-a-kind opportunity here with this natural playscape. I mean, my kids are all in their teens, and we still go to Jester Park to play in the playscape up there because it's totally unique and it's something for all ages. I mean, sometimes I take my shoes off and stomp around in the in the puddles when it's hot and when we go up there. So I just think this is an incredible opportunity for us. And then I am such a strong proponent of having these flushable toilets, and we just don't have any in Dallas. We need to commit to bringing them to more and more of our parks. And I think this makes more sense than putting it across the street at Waterford Park, because I think this is definitely, while that playground and Frisbee golf is very nice, I think we're definitely going to see people at the Barrett Playscape probably with more frequency.
Is this what we should be, or at least me, should I start maybe just conditioning myself that going forward that we're going to be spending this kind of money on park? I mean, isn't historically, I think you budget $50,000 a year for a park, a neighborhood park. So I guess my question is, and maybe I just need to come to the reality that I was told a little bit ago that Big Macs cost over $4 now. So,
But this is not a neighborhood park either, though, Dave.
yeah, well, okay, but if we are building these parks, whether they're neighborhood or whether they're regional, is this something that we need to be prepared for? To know that we're gonna put up to $500,000 in parks, as Bridget said, as we move west and the amenities follow that development. So is the next park that we're gonna look at a year from now, or 2 years, or 3 years from now, are all parks gonna cost us this kind of money?
It certainly depends what amenities you add. When you say $50,000, typically for just the playground now, it's about $75,000 for a playground, depending on the size and scope, certainly. If you add a parking lot, obviously this one, you have the parking lot, you have a lot of concrete infrastructure. That's the majority of that $220,000 that is the initial stage of it. So a lot of it just depends. If you do an open shelter, that's $45,000. So depending on what amenities that you add to a park, as well as a number of our parks as we're developing out west, of how much parkland funds we have, so that a lot of times that will help us be able to do more in a park. But it depends, like if it's just the playground and nothing else, it's probably going to be about $70,000. And you add, what we've been trying to do then is adding open shelters. Many of the new parks out west that don't have trees. So adding some shade structure, that's a really top priority that came from the master plan as well. And then again, the balance of if you want a flushable restroom, it's going to be $250,000 to $300,000. So I know that was one of the top requests and parents with kids. So yeah, it just depends on the amenities that are proposed.
Jan, it was my understanding that $50,000 that we kind of annually allocate in the CIP was just for like upgrading a playground at one of our existing parks. That's been my understanding over the years. Is that true?
Yeah, in the general fund, we have $60,000 for playground renovations and improvement, like at Deer Ridge West, that in the next couple of weeks we'll be replacing the equipment there. That's what that goes toward. So typically when you start from scratch, you just acquire land, you need to do trails to get there, handicapped accessibility. Again, we don't have a lot of parks with parking lots, so that is, not a lot of times you have that cost, but that is, so again, it depends on the size of the park. It is the size of the playground, but that 60,000 in the general fund is for replacement of, we have 37 playgrounds, so, and many of them are 15 years old or so. So it's balancing of getting new and making sure we're maintaining what we currently have.
Jan, I'll just add, I really liked I appreciate you bringing the recommendation to move the shelter to this facility. I think we are really creating a kind of a beachhead in essence of opportunities at that regional park. It's been something I know we've talked about for a long time of creating that destination out there. And I really see this as something that's going to bring people from all over the area to there. We've got the amenities. It makes it just, to me, really I don't know, I kind of see this as the jumping off point for the Walnut Regional Park. You've got a parking lot, you've got flushable restrooms, you've got access to trails, and what I think is going to be just a phenomenal playscape. So I like the fact that we're really bringing a lot of things together, and I think we're going to get a lot of shared access. You can park in the parking lot and get on the trails. You can you can use the restrooms while you're using the trail. I think we're going to get a lot of people that are not just coming just to use the playscape, but are using that as an opportunity to take advantage of a lot of the other great parks and amenities that we have in Urbandale. So I appreciate you bringing that together and really putting it all in one spot. I think we're going to get a lot of regional access for folks in that area. So I appreciate that.
All right, we are, the item is to establish a public hearing on May 18 to approve the plans and specs and to get the cost of improvements. I'll ask for a motion in a second on that item.
I move resolution 126-2021 to establish public hearing on the Barrett Park Natural Playscape.
Motion by Carberry Montgomery.
Second.
Second by Pogge. Further discussion? If not, please vote. Okay, that item passes. Thank you. Item 9.1 is the Barrett Park Natural Playscape site plan. Steve?
Okay, speaking of which, I'm going to have Jan come back up and walk you through this site plan in a little bit more detail here. There we go. Okay, so this is the park. This is 156th Street. This is the creek running through here, and it does include a parking lot, the shelter that we discussed, and then the playscape area. But Jan, you want to come up and just walk them through some of the details of that?
Yeah, and this is phase one of the park. And again, a lot of phase one will be the infrastructure. So again, the parking lot coming off of 156th Street, it'll right across the street of 156th is the entrance into and the drive and parking lot into Waterford Park. So what is proposed is 17 stall parking lot. There's an alternate. There are 4 alternates to this bid. And an alternate would be to add additional parking spots depending on how the bid comes in. This is where the open shelter and the restroom. So essentially the same thing that you've seen proposed at Deer Ridge West and Murphy Park. So you have the shelter or restroom here with an open shelter. So this is handicap accessible pavement here, comes up, and then there's different play features along this circular drive here. So some of the play features and play elements would be engineered wood fiber surfacing, a water pump with troughs, and then a dry creek bed. So again, some of this is just depending on how the bids come in, but this is where the creek or the tributary comes through. So being able to introduce into some of that water as well. So as future phases, we'd have more paved paths as we go through. And this is a dry creek bed as well, so it's going to address some of the detention and some of the water runoff, as well as incorporate it into a play feature into the park. And as I mentioned at the Lunch and Learn the other day of the Water Trails project, where we have proposed in the regional park as well as Walker Johnson here, we're hoping either this one will replace one of those or be an additional one. So those are some of the the amenities. We also, outside the scope of this, but just being this a new park, that we will be putting signage at the corner here as well as right here as you come in, consistent with our signage in the parks for Barrett Park Natural Playscape. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Jan. Any questions for Jan on this item?
Well, as I said, I like that. I love it. I mean, it's a great concept. And since the council's already appropriated the money, then I would move the item.
We haven't appropriated it. I mean, the previous item was only to establish a public hearing date, so.
Yeah, right. But obviously, it seems that we're going to appropriate the money for it. So I'm in favor of it, and I move the item, item number,
I have a comment.
okay.
I have a couple questions too, so yeah.
All right, I'll hold on the motion then.
I was, a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission reached out to me today regarding some discussion, and I didn't have access to the minutes today. My iPad was giving me fits, but I guess there was significant discussion at the Planning and Zoning Commission about access between the two parks and ensuring that there's safe passage, I mean, between the two, because the kids are gonna run back and forth. And I know in the response that was shared with me from Christy, it was indicated that we could discuss those safety discussions down the road, but I just wanted to go on record that I think it is important that we discuss those issues, whether it be signage or, I mean, it'd be great to have an underpass, but I'm sure that'd blow Dave's head off, so. I just want to go on record that I, at some point, would like to make sure we discuss a crosswalk or, I mean, I know there's rules, John's not in here about, well, you know, about locations of stoplights, but I don't know if you could put a push button for close enough to have a push button or far enough away from this. I guess that we don't even have a stoplight there yet, but figuring out those issues, so.
And that was brought up, and I did talk with John after the planning and zoning meeting of again, here's the parking lot in the playground for Waterford Park, and here is the proposed Barrett Park. One of the questions, will kids run across here? And again, we're guessing, and we don't know to what problem is this a solution to, we don't know if it'll be an issue or not, anticipating probably not people or kids or whoever running across where driveways go, because they still have to then walk all the way down this driveway. There is sidewalk along Waterford, and will be 156th Street. So it'll be a stop sign here. I think, as you had mentioned, John, it's going to be quite a few years before there's a light there. But in one of the proposals, you know, change the speed limit or whatever it is. I know that's a very challenging, that's outside my scope, but, yeah.
And I guess I'd add to that I know a light isn't there, but can you paint a crosswalk on at that intersection before a light?
Painting a crosswalk would not be a problem. Reducing the speeds, I mean, typically we've only done that in school zones, and that's really, again, where we've got the crossing guards and we've got people there. Again, from what Jan said, I believe that since both of these sites are kind of low, that I don't think you're gonna walk, like she said, all the way back up the hill from the cross and then go back on down to the play. I think you're more likely to try to cross 156th Street. And I do believe that's the safest location to cross instead of kind of being, it's not really, you know, the mid-mile, it's the quarter mile or so south. I'd like to see them up where drivers are kind of would be expecting pedestrians to cross, and that's up by an intersection.
So putting a crosswalk, painting a crosswalk in there is something that can be done
Is not a problem.
before, while we wait for traffic counts to go up enough that a stoplight's needed.
Correct. And like Jan said, though, it's probably still a little while before it would warrant the traffic signal.
Where in the project location box is the play area. I know, the end of the little squiggly
play
line is where the
structure was up
play
here.
area is on the Waterford Park side, but so are they pretty similar?
Oh, yeah, the play over here, the play is at the north end of
Right.
the park.
So
And then the
in-
proposed play is also at the north end. That's why
So
I think
it's
that's.
not really too far. Now, is there access? I've only driven to that park. I've never walked. But from that intersection, can you walk down to the Waterford Playground? Is there a path?
Correct. The trail is on the south side here, so you would have to come to here
Okay.
and then come down. Again, what I was saying, with this being floodplain ground, there's a pretty good elevation from the intersection down to the playground, so that's why we got the sidewalk over here. You'd be able to get down to the right elevation and then get to the play equipment.
Will there be, from the east side of the intersection, will there be trail access into the north side of Barrett Park?
So across from Waterford.
Yeah, where you got your hand.
Sidewalk.
Because you're wondering what gets you from the sidewalk to the park.
In a future phase, there will be, but there's sidewalk
We
along.
do have let's see, do we have our aerial or the things? We do have the one piece of trail, developer belt through here.
Yeah, that won't connect to there's
doesn't
a
quite
trail
connect.
on 156 though.
Correct. Yep, there is there.
So there's a trail on the east side of 156 that will to the parking lot, the shelter, the play features.
Well, I appreciate that you guys have talked about it, and I know that we'll have to see how the play happens and address it. But I think planning on putting in the crosswalk there and appropriate signage for that would be a good start.
Yep. I said, yep, having that Public Works paint that would not be a problem.
But having a pedestrian sign too, is that something that you would do then too, or not, John?
Typically, I don't believe you would at an intersection like that. Typically, you kind of have those when you're back, or they're more for the school crossing. Let me look I'd have to read the manual to double check how that would work with the stop sign there.
Would they allow like a children playing sign, maybe 100 yards or something?
That's one thing we tell everybody we do not do, only because you cannot find a neighborhood in town where children do not play.
It's like deer crossing, only cross here.
Yep.
Drive like your kids live here?
So, and, I guess changing topics a little bit, keep beating the dead horse. So Wi-Fi access. In the construction process, just getting the conduit cabling there so it's available when IT says it works.
I don't know if that was included in what's going out to bid.
Yeah, the cabling for this is not included in this bid.
Okay. Empty conduit to put the cabling in wasn't part of the bid either?
And again, I'd have to check with IT in regards to where it's coming from. Is it 156th Street or where is the service right now? My understanding, the service isn't.
I think the other question would be, are we paying for a service? I'm not sure exactly, like MediaCom, CenturyLink are right there now. The city does not. I guess we have fiber on the north end of the park, so I think there is some possibilities that we could maybe try to work something out. A lot's gonna come till we get another route that comes around. Right now, we've got a joint fiber connection that goes on the south side of Waterford Road with ICN that goes into Grimes and then comes back down 128th Street. It's just a temporary solution that'll connect our fuel site. So we'd have to see if there's a way to connect into there.
Well, at least, I guess more as a lead, just getting a conduit to the right of way so that, when it comes through, it's easy to connect.
Right. Yeah, again, it'd be whether we added it through an addendum now or just did it as a separate project later. We'd have to look at that.
Okay.
But at least this is one, if we were gonna provide it from the city, at least we do have a fiber connection along the south side of Waterford.
Jan, I was just curious, are the other three alternatives on this project, anything significant? I know you said there were 4 alternates. One was for the parking lot expansion. Were there any?
Yeah, the parking lot expansion, then creek access with loose parts, so like a kitchen table, like out of wood and stuff for the kids, extra boulders and a path, a sand play area. Let's see if I can find that on these plans.
So kind of some fun extras, is that?
Yeah, so like the play field, and again, fortunately or unfortunately, even if it seems like a lot, that 220,000, when the parking lot is over, I'm trying to think, the parking lot and sidewalk is over $103,000 of that. And so infrastructures you're going to see mostly happen in phase one. And then we're working, internally, we can bring in the loose play features and working with Eagle Scouts and so forth. So it just depends on how those bids come in for those, the parking lot, the creek access, sand play area, and then log pile climber. So it's actually a play structure that would be there.
Great, okay, thanks, Jan, that was my question. And then maybe just maybe Mayor, you can mention, just a procedural, we didn't approve building it, we just established the public hearing?
Correct. Yeah, so all we did with the last previous item was establish the public hearing to accept bids, and so, if the bids come in crazy, then.
So, yeah, I guess my point is, we'll have a chance to look at the bids, see where they come in at.
Yes.
Before we
Yeah,
before we
May
vote there.
18th is when we'll bring
Yes.
bids back to you for consideration.
Yep.
Great, thanks, Jan.
The site plan may change then, is what you're saying as well.
The design plans what would go out tomorrow for bid.
Okay.
So then that's what contractors bid on. And this has been reviewed, engineering, community development, parks and rec, building
We would
department.
be approving the site plan at this time.
But that does have options in the bid.
There's 4 alternates.
Yeah, there's
The base
alternates in the
bid and
bid,
4 alternates.
so that could change the site plan ultimately as far as what the council ultimately approves for the alternates.
Absolutely.
I guess I would then second Councilman Russell's motion to approve Council Letter 6695.
All right, we have a motion by Russell, second by Caduce. Any further discussion? Not, please vote. Thank you. Okay, that item passes. Thank you. Item 9.2 is the Pepsi Can Shed Edition at 3825 106th Street. Steve.
Just gotta say, the best site plan name we've seen so far.
I was just going to say the same thing, if that's not the greatest site plan name ever. Okay, so this is at the Pepsi facility on Douglas. And this is kind of in the back of their lot back here. They have an existing building right now, which they affectionately call the can shed. And so what they're proposing to do is take this existing building and add some square footage both to the north and to the south. The existing building is about 5,700 square feet, and they would add another 6,400 square feet of warehousing. And essentially, this is the operation where the cans come in, they bale them up, and then they take them out for recycling. So this just gives them more room to be able to conduct those operations for baling of the cans and getting them out. Planning and Zoning Commission recommends approval. Be happy to answer questions.
All right, thank you, Steve. Any questions for Steve?
I'd move council letter 6696.
Motion by Russell,
Second?
second by Obrecht. Discussion, please vote. That passes. Item 9.3 is the St. Pius X Church and School Building Addition Site Plan at 3601 66th Street.
Let's see here. There we go. Okay, this is the next phase in St. Pius's redevelopment. And what they are planning to do, there's the existing school building ends right here. And this is the building adjacent to the east. And what this will do is basically connect these two buildings together and then run a little bit of an addition down here along the south side of the existing building. So the total addition, it's 2 stories, it's about 8,520 square feet. As I mentioned, it would join these two buildings together and then also wrap around the south side of the Parish Center. The addition will accommodate 4 multipurpose rooms, 2 meeting rooms, and then there will be new restrooms on each level as well. So really helping with the day-to-day functions of meeting space. The part that wraps around the south side of the building here would be specifically bleachers for that area of the existing building. The important thing to note here is that it does not impact their seating capacity or their enrollment of the school. Those numbers will stay the same, and that's what all of the parking requirements are based on. So it's really just enhancing space for the existing number of students and the existing numbers that would be there on Sundays. As is required for this type of thing, there was a conditional use permit that was granted from the Urbandale Board of Adjustment on April 7th. You saw in the P&Z minutes that Rick Baumover with Bishop kind of went into quite a bit more detail about essentially what they're doing there. Planning and Zoning Commission does recommend approval. Be happy to answer questions on this one.
All right, thank you, Steve. Any questions for Steve on this item?
Motion to approve Council Letter 6697.
Motion by Obrecht.
Second.
Second by Russell. Discussion, please vote.
So that everyone knows, I am a member of St. Pius, but I checked with legal counsel, and that apparently isn't a conflict.
You know, in the building
To
committee.
stay on the good side of God, I'm going to vote for it.
Aren't you chairing the building committee on this project?
No.
Chair and funding.
Fundraiser, yes, capital campaign.
All right, that item passes.
Well, Ron, enjoy your new meeting space.
Item 9.4 is to consider the Waterford Point Townhomes Plat 1 preliminary and plat and site plan at 142nd Street and Waterford Road. Steve?
Okay, this is a preliminary plat and site plan on about 12 acres of the overall 76 and a half acre site. This is just up from the corner. Here's 142nd Street. Excuse me, and Waterford Road is down here to the south. This is an outlot yet to be platted. And what this does, well, I should mention back in 2018, there was a site plan and a preliminary plat done for this area that included 50 townhouse units. However, they've kind of changed the unit type that they want to do since then. And so the scope of the project has changed. And so this is the new preliminary plat that shows what they want to do. Overall, there are going to be a total of 62 townhomes in this area. And so what this first plat does is establish the first 25 units. And so you can see that those are units here. There's five plexes that'll be built with a street that comes, this is Goldenrod Drive, which comes off the existing street that goes up to the single family, and then Walnut Meadows Drive, which comes off of 142nd Street. So you'll have your access in there. And then there's five plexes for these first 25 units of the total 62 units to be built, and those will come in future phases. Planning and Zoning Commission recommends approval. Be happy to answer questions on this.
All right, thanks, Steve. Any questions for Steve?
So I guess my question was on Outlot A. Is that commercial, residential? What's that intended for in the future?
Right, as the PUD is written today, it could be multifamily or townhomes.
Okay.
Yep.
Motion to approve Council Letter 6698.
We have to take them in 2 items. Preliminary plat and site plan, so.
Motion to approve the preliminary plat.
Okay, motion by Obrecht.
Second.
Who got it there?
You got it.
Second by Caduce. Discussion, please vote. That passes.
And motion to approve the site plan for Waterford Point Townhomes.
Motion by Obrecht.
Second.
Second by Carberry Montgomery. Discussion, please vote. And that passes. All right, thank you. Item 9.5 is the Waterford Landing Plat 8 preliminary plat at 167th Street and Waterford Road.
I jumped the gun. It doesn't want you to share too early. Okay, try it again here. There we go. Okay. This is Waterford Landing Plat 8. This is, I think, the fourth time it's been in. The first time it was in, several years ago, it was all single-family homes. This is owned by Hubble. They decided that did not meet, that wasn't the product to meet the demands of the market. So they came back in with a proposal for part of this area, which was all villas. And then that got withdrawn, and then they came back in with a plat that was some villas and some townhomes. And the neighbors kind of pushed back on that, the existing homes. And so this is the latest iteration, which does now include all of the remaining property that's on the north side of Waterford Road. So that's being called Waterford Landing Plat 8. It is a mix of different housing types of products. There are 119 total lots. There are 18 two-family attached townhomes and 9 buildings, and so those are the buildings that are here at the end of the cul-de-sac. So each of these lots is a unit, but there are 9 buildings, each with 2 units on them, and so that's what's in this cul-de-sac. There are a total of 14 single-family detached lots, which they're calling the villas, which are the smaller lots. And those are the lots in through here. And then the rest of the single-family lots, there are 87 of those, and they are a combination of 60-foot, 70-foot, 75, and 80-foot wide lots, which does comply with the original PUD. And then Outlot D, excuse me, up here in the corner, is going to be a future parkland area, and that's about 11 1/3 acres. So that kind of highlights in a nutshell what the product mix is in the area. You're probably all aware from seeing P&Z minutes and from meetings that staff has had with the developer. Staff does have some fairly significant concerns about the drainage that's kind of running behind these lots back in this area. So before we take any questions, I'm going to turn it over to John Larson, city engineer, and let him kind of articulate to you what our concerns are with that drainage area back there.
Okay, like Steve said, I just kind of wanted to start with some of the history, just kind of bring everybody up to speed on how we've kind of gotten to where we're at. This first figure here is from their drainage calculations. As Steve said, the site is here. Here we've got 170th Street on the west. Here's Waterford Road. So to the south and west, we have roughly 120 acres that drains to this site. So a fairly large drainage area that comes this way, and ultimately the outlet point here is just on the north side of Waterford Road. One thing to keep in mind is, as this area here develops, detention, things will be added, and that'll start to slow down, reduce our release rates as we get up to Waterford Road. But until which time that entire area is developed, most of that is undetained and we'll get there quicker. So we're kind of looking at 2 different situations. One, how it is today and what it'll be like when everything's fully developed. So when it started out, as Steve was kind of saying, we had, which is kind of hard to see here, but this was the drainage way here. They had a street that ran kind of parallel to it, and then there was units all along the drainage way. And originally they had a 20-foot drainage way, and we were looking to have a 36-inch low-flow pipe added back there. Basically, the low-flow pipes pick up your smaller draining or smaller rains so that you don't have as much water flowing on the surface. And it also, I think, helps a lot with erosion, so that basically we don't have cutting in areas that'll have to be repaired. So just to give you a kind of a point of view with that, a 36-inch to me, sounds like a big pipe. But so when this thing is fully developed, it'll only handle what we consider roughly a 3-year storm. The tables go 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, but it's somewhere kind of in that 3-year storm. So a storm that's going to happen fairly often would go in the pipe and over land both. And then basically when everything was fully developed to the south, that would get us about the 3-year. And before we get any development down there, we're going to be about a half of a 1-year storm goes in there, and the rest goes overland. The developer had proposed putting in a 12-inch low-flow pipe. The reason we were wanting the 36 over the 12 is just the 12-inch handles very little flow, especially considering the amount of acreage that is flowing to this. So, you know, whether it's fully developed or the way it is today, we're anywhere from 3 to 10% of a one-year storm. So very little water goes in the pipe. Most would be over land. So what they propose to do is to make some changes like Steve had shown here. Is the area that came behind here. They basically were looking at a wider swale that went behind these units. These other units over here move further away from the swale. Then we kind of get into a pinch point here where it'll go through pipes and then it gets to the detention area here. So like I said, they were proposing to do anywhere from 40 to 65 foot wide. I'll have to zoom in when this starts here so we can see. Behind the units, the channel being, you know, here where it starts off north of Waterford, 65 feet wide. As you move up around the units, it narrows to 40, and then having some gabion baskets in here to slow down the flow of water in the channel. And they were still proposing their 12-inch pipe. So by making the channel a lot wider, what it does is it makes your depth of the flow less, but it spreads that over anywhere from that 40 to 65 feet. And our concern is that that's when you start to get more of the erosion, is again, as the water's flowing through it, it just tends to cut in places the wider you spread it out. So it's just gonna make your overall maintenance difficult. And keep in mind, ultimately, from what our understanding is that this will be turned over to the home association, so it'll be theirs to maintain after all the units are sold. And that's really, the maintenance is a big part of why we would like to see that 36-inch low flow pipe. And I think it also helps the less big flows people see behind their houses. I think the less calls the city actually gets over time. And then just to kind of give you some perspective, so these lots down here, I looked at a 10-year storm, which, you know, you've got your 10% chance each year you're gonna have it. It seems like lately we have a 5 to a 10-year storm is kind of a normal storm. We're looking at behind these units, depending on how wide it is, anywhere from 1 to 2 feet deep. And then in your 100-year storm, which again has happened, but it's not nearly as often, you'll get 1.5 to 2.5 feet deep behind those units. Then as we move further to the north, this is the area that's just south of where we have pipes that go into the detention area. Have some concerns about maybe these northern 2 units here. Basically, in a 10-year storm, the water would be roughly a foot deep, the 100-year, 1.5 to 2 foot deep. But if we look here, the hatched in area here is kind of the bottom of the channel width, and then kind of the pattern just outside of it is kind of the top of their channel. And if you start looking at kind of where these units are, for instance, this third one down, they've labeled from the corner of the unit to the bottom of the outside edge of that channel is 52 feet. But as we get up to these other 2 units here, they're just a lot closer. And it seems like, especially this one here, where even part of the channel is actually on the lot. So you start to see that getting very, very close to the units. So again, just from staff's perspective on the engineering side is we'd like to see a 36-inch low flow pipe. And we just, again, point out that we got some concerns about these 2 units up here, how close they are to the channel. So I guess with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions or if you had any for Steve.
So recently we kind of, I guess, approved some new stormwater regulations. And was that mostly commercial that was on versus residential?
Actually, their detention is even north of this, so it isn't part of this.
Okay. And then Hubble does a lot of kind of vegetation in some of their waterways and that. Are they proposing any special vegetation through this waterway, or is it just mow the grass?
No, I still think it would be the low maintenance vegetation. I think what's different is there's a couple examples that we discussed with them that they said were similar to this. I think the biggest difference is they're maybe another 50 feet or more further from the units. So to me, the reason that from engineering we have the concerns is over the years, I guess I've been here long enough that these are kind of the things that council's flagged us before, watch for these, make sure we don't have these issues brought to us on a regular basis. And again, just with these, when they started off, they were fairly deep flows adjacent to the units. Now they're much more spread out and shallow, but I think there's still going to be a maintenance issue and some things for the association to deal with that might be a challenge.
And then the property to the west of this, I'm guessing that's the property line, the dashed.
That's our property.
And that's our property. So
Yep.
bringing any of that channel over our way or to that property owner, which happens to be us, could be something they could propose if they wanted to, but at this point, they're not doing that.
Correct. That'd be something for the council to decide if they wanted our property encumbered. It's something I guess we could look at if we wanted to sell a piece of our property. I think my first reaction is I'd probably want to sell, then have it encumbered and be on our property.
So John, you and I had a conversation with Joe and Steve from Hubble on this. This is essentially the same issue that we talked about during that.
Correct.
It hasn't changed anything since then.
The biggest thing that changed is they just widened the channel and added the check dams.
John, I can say that first heavy rain after that northern unit is filled, they're going to be calling us about the raging river in their backyard. And so I agree with you. I think now's the time to fix it. And if we can require 36 inch and you think that'll help, I think we stick to it and make them do it.
Yep, like I said, I think that'll improve things. Again, we'd have to see all their updated calculations with the 36, see what the flow depths would be in the channel. But I think compared to the 12 inch, I think the 36 will be a benefit.
So given all this, is it premature to approve the preliminary plat tonight? Or you recommend approval subject to still, I mean, is this something that still can be discussed prior to the final plat being approved?
Really from here would be, the next step would be the construction drawings. So there really wouldn't normally be another approval. I think it'd be a matter of working this all out.
So do we need to table this tonight or?
What would you think, Steve? It could be tabled or it could be subject to staff. We've had a lot of discussions. I don't know if staff and the developer will ever completely see eye to eye, so.
You certainly could delay it a couple of weeks.
Excuse-
I don't know, there may be somebody from Hubble on the line.
Yeah, Steve, just a minute. Yeah, Steve Mosley's online. Steve, hang on a second. We'll get you in here in a second. Let me have Steve Franklin finish his comments here to the council.
I think you could approve it subject to requiring the 36-inch pipe. That would be one thing you could do, or depending on what you might hear from the developer, if you want some more discussions, whatever direction you would want to take. But delaying it 2 weeks is certainly an option for you, or you could approve it subject to all of the other comments that are in that staff report, and then also based on the information John's given you.
Okay.
However you would want to do it.
All right.
Like I said, I'm just wondering, it may be best if we met a resolution to bring back to you, though, just so you understand where we're at. Because I agree with Ron, I do think we have the issue now where we're likely going to have the phone calls with concerns on this flowage back there.
All right. So Steve Mosley, you're on the meeting. You wanted to speak to the council on this?
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. My name's Steve Mosley. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. I'm the Director of Land Development for Hubble Realty, and over the last couple of months, we've been working with the engineering department to look at some options for the drainage way, which John has presented tonight. We're currently unable to come to agreement on the alternate solution to the 36-inch low-flow storm pipe in Outlot C along the west side. That's obvious. John said we probably won't see quite eye to eye on that. The addition of the pipe has added over $250,000 in construction costs to the project to handle the increased flow onto the property until the upstream areas are developed. But we're currently at a point where we need to move forward tonight with this project, and we would appreciate it if we could do this approval subject to working through some of these last few items with staff. We will move forward with the 36-inch low-flow storm pipe in Outlot C. But if we delay this a couple more weeks to work through a couple more items, we're already running a high risk of not being able to deliver lots at the end of this construction season, which would delay this project basically until next year at this time. As a point of clarification, I would like it added under comment number 8, where it says fences will be required along the rear yards, to read fences will be required along the rear yards from lots 22 to 40. Those were added in order to keep children from wandering out of their properties into the drainage way during storm events, and we're more than happy to do that and take care of that for those lots until it gets down to the detention basin. And under item number 9, I would like to note that we will need to work with city staff on the review of the construction drawings regarding the outlet structure of the basin should be designed to not require modification in the future. That may be a challenge as things are developed upstream. So we just like to be able to work with them on those items. Like I said, we've delayed this project a lot in order to try to work through this issue. And at this point, we would just like to move forward so we can keep construction going as the weather is ready right now.
All right. A question, Steve, David Russell here. Did you say that you
Yes.
would be willing to include the 36-inch pipe?
Yes, we're happy to, at this time, to accept staff's recommendations for the 36-inch low-flow pipe in order to move the project forward tonight. If we could all do that, that would be phenomenal.
And is that the largest stumbling block other than the fence and a couple of other issues?
Right, and I assume the fence, not having these labeled, we're talking fence along these units, I assume, and then the back of these units here?
Yes, John, yep.
So basically, and I myself personally, I don't have an issue, whoops, trying to grab it here. I don't think we need the fence here where they're, so much further from the drainage way. I think it's just getting that nice separation from the rear yard to that drainage way. Would you agree, Steve?
Yeah, and it's really, I'm agreeing with those points in comment number 8 and comment 9. I just want it to be clarified so we're not fencing lots 1 through 40, which would be along the creek on the north side as well.
So does that tend to take care of all the issues?
I think it does, yep. So it'll just be during the construction drawings. And again, we can definitely work with them on intake structure. It's a pretty big structure. That's why we're just trying to do it once, not have to know that we need to come back maybe in 10, 15 years when everything's fully developed and then change it. But again, we're open to working with them on that.
Okay.
So if there were to be a motion that the council approve this, subject to the staff and P&Z recommendations as modified on items 8 and 9 by the applicant?
I would make that motion.
I'd still like to make a comment, but I'm okay with that motion.
I'll second that.
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
I just was
then.
proposing it.
Yeah, since the mayor can't make it.
Why don't you go ahead?
I mean, you said it so nice.
I'll make the motion, let it second, then discussion.
First of all, I just want to thank Steve. I know you've worked on this project for a really long time. The very last meeting I had, Steve Mosley, the very last meeting I had before COVID was working with the neighbors related to the site plan. And in regards to that part of the project, I think the site plan looks great. I'm glad that we found a solution that made the existing homeowners happy and made Hubble have a project that worked. And I liked seeing the variety of housing stock and price points in this area. Related to the discussion tonight, I guess I don't really like being put in this position where things aren't quite tied up before we get here. And there's still things to work out. But at the same time, that's what you guys brought us. And if Hubble agrees to everything, that's fine. From what little I know about the overland flow, it takes a lot of education on the homeowners to understand that whole process. And I'd like to see if there's a way that we can make that education happen. Whether it's, I don't know, pamphlets at the site, I don't know. I'm looking at the other Steve in the room, but I think there's probably got to be creative ways that we can encourage the education of the homeowners. I don't want to see this delayed till next year. So I'm hopeful that, down the road, we can make sure that the property owners understand what they're taking on. And then ultimately, when the homeowners association takes over everything, I don't want to have them be left with this massive project that no one really knows how to manage.
Yeah, agreed. I think it's important that the homeowners know, and I guess what I would suggest, I assume, and Steve, maybe you know or don't know, but Hubble may very well end up building most, if not all of these. And so what would be good is part of the marketing when people are looking at these lots, that there's some kind of information that Hubble would provide, or whoever the builder is, so that those people know what's coming. Because even with the 36-inch pipe, there's still going to be issues through here. The maintenance is still a concern. There's still going to be flow. It won't completely go away, so.
Yeah, the three of you were not on council, but, Ron and I were on council. We've had these kinds of discussions with respect to that there are private streets and the utilities, and that the homeowner, some sort of notice given to them. But, I don't know if we've ever really worked out a satisfactory solution for giving notice to prospective homeowners that, hey, when you buy this place, the streets are on you, the maintenance is on you, the utilities are on you, and now the stormwater issue is on you. And if there's a pond, the pond's on you. And they always come back to us on the city over the years when there's a problem. And I don't know, or I don't remember if we've ever really come up with a good solution, because, Bridget, I agree that with exactly what you're saying with respect to education on this issue, but it's on the entire concept that when you buy in here, these are private streets, and the snow removal, the maintenance, all of that is on you as the homeowner. And again, we've talked about it before. I don't know if we've ever really come up with a good solution.
I just add, I think the part of that's tough is just the different people. You've got the developer, then you could have the home builder who may have somebody that's purchased a lot. They may not have anybody that's purchased a lot yet. So if you tie it to the building permit, there may not be a homeowner yet or anybody to tell. So it's just that tough thing with so many people touching the lots. How do you tell the right person at the right time? Or some people may have bought it long before they ask questions or anything like that.
Education sounds really well, but that boils down to relying on the agents who've been telling everybody who bought out in West Urbandale for the last 30 years that the pool will be open in a month.
It won't it? I'm still counting on it for
No
next
matter what we
month.
say, they always say, my realtor told me this.
Ron,
Well, I'd like to see us be creative. I know Steve Mosley has a great team at Hubble. And if they're the one, especially if they're the ones building these townhouses, then hopefully that'll solve this particular issue. But I do, what Dave said about, some of these issues that we keep coming up with. I mean, maybe that's a topic for down the road, AJ, to talk about in a lunch and learn or something. It'll be a fascinating one, let me tell you, but.
Didn't we even talk about, Adam, one of the projects, I think, a couple months ago, that we wanted the street signs, some sort of, they were gonna be either smaller or different color or something?
Yeah, a private street being a different sign than a non-private street.
Yeah.
Public street.
Or
Yeah,
saying
'cause these are
enter at your
private
own
streets.
risk. Skull and crossbones.
Don't go near here.
All right, so there's a motion by Obrecht.
Right, making the motion that our mayor had articulated.
I'll second the motion.
Second by Kudus. Any further discussion? If not, please vote. At the end of the day, Steve Mosley, we'll just, if there's a problem, we just give the residents your cell phone number and Joe P's cell phone number. Is that okay?
I can't speak for Joe, but I think a lot of residents have my cell phone number already.
I've got it in my phone and I'm free, I will share it freely if I get any notices.
Steve, in all seriousness, thanks for working this out. So we appreciate it. So
Yeah, we appreciate
Thank you all very much for helping us through this.
Yeah, can't wait to see the dozers out there. Thanks, Steve.
all right, moving on to regular agenda items. Item 10.1 is the equipment purchase for the building inspector vehicles. Steve, answer any questions if there are.
Move to approve council letter 6701.
Motion by Obrecht,
Second.
Second by Pogie, discussion.
I've,
please vote.
I've
Oh,
just a question.
I'm sorry, yep.
So, and I probably should have brought this up with AJ, and this is like a big picture thing. I know during our strategic planning, we talked about like electric vehicles and things like that way back when. You know, at what point do we actually start possibly considering that sort of thing when we buy cars?
That's a great question. One of the things that we looked at, and I don't know if it's in the construction plans, but having a charging station at the new Public Works facility. So until such time that we have the capacity on campus, regardless of our campuses, it probably doesn't make a lot of sense for us at that point, but clearly the automotive industry is moving that way. And so more than likely, sooner than later, that we'll be in that position where we can offer that as an alternative. It also depends on the use of the vehicle as well. Right now, we've had a number of hybrid vehicles. Typically, they don't do well for in-town driving. The hybrid vehicle is more efficient when it's on the highway, and more often than not, and ours aren't. So long answer to your question is that we will begin to look at that when we have the capacity to have charging stations for them.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. Any further discussion? If not, we have a motion and a second. Ask for a vote. And that item passes. Item 10.2 is to consider the Economic Development Advisory Board, and Curtis, we have our Assistant City Manager and Economic Development Director, Curtis Brown, up in the stratosphere. Curtis, you want to introduce the item?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. In 2013, when the Economic Development Advisory Board was established, we began with 10 perspectives on economic development. And what we looked to do was to find different perspectives that would help us to put together our economic development plan. So among those were representatives from each of our major targeted industries: real estate development and brokerage, young professionals, retail, hospitality, service, and citizen stakeholder. As time has gone on and our economic development effort has matured, we've started to see that, one, there are more people who have raised their hand and would like to be involved in helping to shape the economic development within the city. But then second of all, it might be that we find our young professional representative also happens to represent advanced manufacturing. And so I guess to put it simply, the rigidity of the prescribed 12 positions isn't perhaps as important as it was before. So what we propose here is a restructuring of the composition of the advisory board. So it doesn't impact at all any of the people who are serving now or their terms. They will continue their terms, but basically it just gives us more flexibility when we are looking for people to fill positions, and still making sure that we have representation from our primary sectors, but also giving another position on the board to retail, service, and hospitality. So that can be defined broadly, everything from hotels to stores, restaurants, to professional services, whether it's accounting, architecture, what have you. So we do think that this will ultimately give you, Mayor, more flexibility in looking at appointments, and then to the City Council in affirming those appointments.
All right, thank you, Curtis. Any questions for Curtis?
Yeah, happy to take any questions.
Curtis, do we have gender equity generally on this advisory board?
Definitely. The mayor's been committed to that since we put it together, and we are perfectly balanced.
Great.
Curtis, having been an inaugural member of the Economic Development Advisory Board. This is a great advancement, so thanks very much for suggesting it.
Thank you, council member. Appreciate that.
All right. Any further?
And with that, I'll make a motion to approve Council Letter 6702.
Motion by Caduce,
Second.
second by Obrecht. Any further discussion? Not, please vote. That passes. Item 10.3 is consider the 2021 Series A General Obligation Bonds bid tab. And to introduce this is our Finance Director, Nikki Lamb. Nikki?
All right, let me get this shared. Except I didn't hit share before I pulled it up.
Well, it's 1:42 in the morning there.
All right. Going to be the Vanna White of our slideshow. I have Travis Squires with Piper Sandler joining us via phone tonight. He had a track meet in this chilly weather to join, but I believe he is on. Is he able to be unmuted? Travis, can you speak yet? Just checking.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Awesome. So
Can
today
you hear me?
Yes, we can, Travis.
Yes.
Yep.
Can you hear us okay? We just got a delay.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so today we sold our bonds at 11 o'clock this morning. 9.44 million was the anticipated sale, and we got some great rates, which Travis will go through. And we actually ended up resizing it down to 9.1 million. So we'll just talk through the results real quick, and I will just turn it over to Travis.
Okay. And Nikki will be my Vanna White on the slides. There you go. Go kind of walk through this relatively quickly. I know you guys had a big agenda tonight, so I've kind of saving some of the general market condition data that we went over last year's meeting. But a little bit about the financing process. City's obvious public hearing through the official statement process with your bonded disclosure council. Nice set of news from the rating agency with your AA1 rating being affirmed once again. Nice remarks from the rating agency, and clearly seeing a lot of the progress you've been making over the last couple of years. And the rating agency was to continue to eliminate some of the outstanding debt with your local option sales tax dollars. Over the last couple of weeks, the bond offering documents have been on the street, and we've had them out. And with that, you received 4 proposals today. So, Nikki, go ahead, next slide. Okay, one more. All right, there you go. One.
Sorry, we have a delay. And
so the preliminary sizing amount was 9 point. Oh, no problem. Preliminary sizing was 9.44 million, Series 2021A. It does include your CIP debt for this current year, which includes primarily a debt that will be paid with your debt service levy, and then debt that will be paid with TIF as a much smaller component, but just one series. You received 4 bids, all of them within about the last 10 seconds, or at least 3 of them within 10 seconds of the 1 o'clock or 11 o'clock bid deadline. Robert W. Barrett and Company at 0.778%. Northland Securities 0.898%. the Baker Group at 0.915, and then Raymond James 1.032%. So really a phenomenal set of bids today. As the city has continued to work the debt profile over the last years, we've switched from 15-year debt into 12-year debt, and this year debt is 10 years and the TIF. So we're just able to for maturity debt, which down the rates. So next slide. Okay. So for the winning bid results here, you can see the bid from Robert W. Baird. Interest rate 5%, interest rate at 1 through 27, and then 2028 at 1%, 29 at 1%, 30 at 1%, and then 105 and 31. And with their bid, they were paying you a pretty sizable, what we call premium. So you can see the coupon rates versus the yields, which are creating dollar prices. And so your yields on your debt range from 0.14 out to 1.05, and you can see that the purchase price was about 109% of the par amount on average. So that we were able to resize downward the issuance to $9.1 million. You can see at the bottom then your purchase price, $9,943,000, net interest cost, and your true interest rate finalized at 0.78%. Next slide, Nikki. A little bit more detail on the other bids. We saw obviously the true interest rate ranking the bids, but a little bit more on their bids. You can see some of them bid 3% or 4% coupons, but they all did bid what we call a move forward and looking at the big picture, the impact on your financial profile. You're going to see a debt service schedule. So this is your combined, you can see a sizable amount of debt paid off here in 1 year. So that takes you right up to that $1.54 debt service levy. Your what we call your CIP or your debt service levy option then has level principal payments at about $640 annually, and then your TIF is amortized over the first 5 years. So you're going to see that in a couple slides. The next slide, or slide 10, of the use of the funds. A couple notes there. This funds your CIP at the 9.97 for total project funds. You can see there's a small cash contribution to cover issuance cost on the debt, and then you can see the reoffering premium as finalized at about $900,000. How does this compare to where rates were in the planning process? They're around 0.5% lower. We had built in about 0.25% movement to be allowed from the February rates that we were seeing in the market. And then we've actually seen a nice little downturn in rates over the last couple weeks. Rates to be slightly lower than we might have anticipated they would have been 2 weeks ago. So overall, if you go to the slide 11, Nikki, is the debt service allocation. I talked about the Northwest market debt paid off over 5 years, your regular CIP portion then over 10. And you can see your combined levy rate summary after this issue. You have a nice amount of annual levy. That is assuming no valuation growth, but also no additional debt service payments. So as we continue to work through the city's financial plan, we'll look at setting those debt payments to keep that interest rate low and the term of your debt low, which drives all interest costs that the patrons of the city capital improvement projects. So yeah, a quick summary, a great time to be selling bonds in general, and then, market for the city bonds. Looked at some comparable market financings, and there's obviously still some value with your rating level and name for the city of Urbandale or some of your other comparable issues that were in the market. We were able to as a bank qualified versus non-bank qualified, which is just an extra purchasers receive in terms of a federal deduction on their taxes. So typically you see that pass on lower rates. We did see that today. Overall, we recommend the acceptance of the bid from Barrett, and that it was in line with market expectation and just a great overall result, leveraging resources, and you can do it for less than 1%. It's a good day at the office. So at this time, I'll kind of take if there's any questions. Look more about market data, and I offered up to Nikki if there's anyone from the council who wants to take a little bit more time, perhaps on a short call later this week or next week, to just talk through some of the market dynamics we're seeing. That offer is always on the table. But at this time, I'll turn it over for Nikki or AJ for any summary comments and the council for any questions.
All right, thank you, Travis.
So the only thing I would add is acceptance of the bid tonight, and then we'll bring it back to you at the next one for the official finalization of it, and then the proceeds are received in about 30 days.
All right, great. Any questions from the council? Again, very good news. Thank you. Thanks, Travis. Thanks, Nikki. And with that, ask for a motion in a second.
I would move approval of Resolution 127-2021.
Motion by Pogge.
Second.
Second by Carberry Montgomery. Discussion, please vote. That passes. All right, item 10.4 is to consider the non-union employee salary schedules for fiscal year 21-22. And I know our HR director, Aaron Freeman, is online. Aaron, did you have anything further to add?
No, I just wanted to add that what you see in front of you is consistent with what was approved in the operating budget previously at the March 23rd meeting, and also consistent with what we're seeing for market comparables and with what was negotiated with all three union contracts. So I'd be happy to entertain any questions that you had.
Okay. Any questions for Aaron? All right. If not, then ask for a motion in a second.
I'll move Council Letter 6662.
Motion by Caduce.
Second.
Second by Carberry Montgomery. Discussion, please vote. And that passes. All right. Thank you. That takes us to the end of our regular agenda. Ron, do you have anything tonight?
The only thing I'd say, I'd like to compliment staff. I mean, we got phenomenal results on a bond sale, and it's because of our finances throughout the year and our ratings and all their hard work. So I appreciate that, and it makes our job a little easier when you have a 0.78% interest rate. So.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ron. Bridget.
Small list today for me. The Polk County Housing Trust Fund is doing some really good work this week. Talked to AJ about it. I think I sent an email out to you guys last week. If you go out to their Facebook page, today their discussion over the noon hour was on the west and northwest suburbs, so that included Urbandale. Talked about, average rents, average home prices, tenancy splits, percentages of households that are cost burdened. So there's lots of good data that came from the American Community Survey over the last 5 years. So you can go out and watch that discussion. They are alphabetical when they reviewed them, so you can scroll through if you don't want to hear about Clive. But I think it's interesting because that is really our, competition, the Johnson, the Clive, West Des Moines. And then tomorrow they're talking over the noon hour about Grimes, Norwalk, and Des Moines. Thursday is the commercial real estate event that they are helping sponsor. And then Friday from 10 to 12, You have to register for it. I think there's a link on their Facebook page, but there is it's called Here We Grow, Achieving Housing Equity, Affordability, and Accessibility in Metro Des Moines. And I would encourage all of you to participate if you can. I don't know the best word to describe what it is. It's not I don't think it's an interactive. They were gonna have presentations from DART and from the United Way and other agencies that have data to add to the discussion of the creation of a regional affordable housing strategy. So this is all work that kind of got put on hold because of COVID. So the studies that came out like during the fall, summertime in 2019 is really this work continued. So I hope you can all join in on that discussion because what the information that they showed today, we still have lots of work today, but they did indicate that the mayor and myself and Creighton Cox were very committed to affordable housing. So, and then I just wanted to also thank Adam of Caduce and Conduce Lawn Care Services and Mayor Bob for helping out this weekend with Darlene's yard. She's a 54-year resident of that particular house, and I think a longer-term resident of Urbandale. It was just fun to get out there. And thanks, Dave, for the good weather. We gave you full credit for the weather. So
We gave you credit for praying for good weather.
So we were done in a couple hours, and apparently we overfilled the bags. But it was a great exercise, and I look forward to working with y'all again on that in the fall. So that's all I got.
Thanks, Bridget. Adam?
I'm good.
David?
Yeah, I was going to apologize for not showing up on Saturday. And not only was I late, but when I did show up, I went to the wrong house.
Yes. Oh, that picture you took was great.
Yeah, I sent the picture, but it was the wrong house. But it looked like it was a freshly raked yard. It looked great.
It's a good thing there weren't a bunch of leaves in it.
Exactly. And then AJ, thanks for that video. If you haven't seen it, he said you sent it out of the Public Works crew picking up the spring cleanup. And it really comes across in that video how much snow was on the ground at that particular hour. So it was a big hit in our neighborhood. I thought that there was not quite as much junk on the curb this year as we've had in past. Maybe it's because we just did it in September, because we did it late last year.
I kind of agree, that's probably likely it. I know Monday ended a lot earlier than we anticipated. It was done by 2:30. Today they're anticipating a little heavier load, but I have not heard when they finished it.
Yeah, well, everybody appreciates it, and it's one of the things I think that people look forward to every year, so kudos. Then the last thing is, I think maybe the mayor, if you will, or somebody give us a COVID update.
A COVID update?
Yeah, like, at what is our anticipated opening of the city hall, of the library, of those. I thought we were going to get an update. You were kind of wait for a certain positivity rate or some matrix.
Yeah, the matrix that was established previously was the 8% sustained for below 8% 14-day positivity rate sustained for 7 days, and that's why you're meeting in person. The 5% rate has not been met for Polk County, 14-day average for 7 days sustained. And those are the numbers that we go by that are released that Jerry, the fire chief, gets from Polk County, from the emergency folks. There has been discussion internally. We're talking about, is there that magic date that, because we get phone calls, we get inquiries, not a lot. We've gotten some, quite honestly. I think most people have adapted to the services that we provide online or that we can get them for not coming to the building. The library has opened up. They have it's not their normal hours. Off the top of my head, I can't tell you what they are. I know that the library director presented those previously to council. Excuse me. And that he says that they're doing about 200 people a day coming in. Okay. And they are coming in, they're doing their business, and they're leaving. And they've also made physical arrangements inside the building that does not really accommodate longer stays. They've moved chairs out of the area, and their patrons have been really very responsive to our request for use of masks, coming in, get your business, and then leaving. So that's gone very well. So again, really, the parameters that were pre-established haven't been met yet, but I know that there has been ongoing discussion or comments from other communities, from some of the members of council about, when is that date? When are we comfortable? And so we're going from a staff perspective down that line. All of our staff is in the building now. We had them staggered, but come April 2nd, we began to have, or April 5th, pardon me, everybody was coming back in. And so now we have full staff. We do have situations where people do travel, that we ask them to kind of work from home for a couple of days, kind of self-quarantine, just to make sure that there's no issues associated with it. And then last Wednesday, we had a vaccination here at City Hall. And again, the numbers escape me, but I think in total, I think we were 121 bodies that got vaccinated, and that included 29 from the city of Clive. So as the HR director and I actually today spent about an hour talking about some strategies about when that takes us to the second shot.
May 4th is the second shot, May 4th?
Yeah, I think it's May 19th. We come fully vaccinated because you get the second shot and then you have another, 2-week time period before that happens. So that puts us roughly at the end of May. And so we were talking just internally that maybe at June 1st that we kind of open up those doors and see what kind of response we get from the public. The mayor and I have not spoken about that today, so I do apologize, Bob. We just hadn't, but maybe I just read too many websites and look at too many reports, but I see upper Midwest surges, and I see the variants that's sneaking into Iowa and some other things, and you see, how effective the vaccines are. Not, it's almost informational overload at some point that we've been so diligent for well over a year now. And our employees have done a great job of protecting themselves, their family members, the work members. And we've made alterations in all of our schedules. We had people that, when this first came out, we rotated people out of their staffs. I mean, and I know that Steve and Nikki and John are here, that they can attest. If we had people in your staff, John would take a week off, and then Dave McKay would work. Nikki would take a week off, and then her staff would work, and they would rotate that through. So we're basically done with that because we feel with the vaccinations and everything else, we're in good shape. So I think right now, that's kind of our tentative plan. But again, I would certainly welcome any comments you guys have. At the same time, I don't know that there's anything definitive that tells us when it's safe to go back into the water.
Yeah, I think that's generally aligns with what we've talked about, AJ. I think as far as, again, we always had the metric of 8% for us to get back together, and we've met that, and 5% for the public to come back in for meetings, and we haven't quite met that yet. So, but I think, as AJ said, we got our city staff has had the opportunity now to get vaccinated, and they'll be fully vaccinated by late May. I think probably June 1 is appropriate time to look at, that we can at least open our doors again. And we know that our employees are as protected as they can be, and hopefully the rate is even lower then. So, but I think we're on a good path right now.
And we would fully expect that our visitors coming in, and we've invited visitors into the building now on a case-by-case basis. And all of our visitors have been extremely cooperative with wearing masks, social distancing, all the protocols that we put in place. And we would see those extending throughout the rest of the year probably. And that's just a projection now, but for the foreseeable future is that when we invite the public in, that we ask them to wear a mask. We ask them to practice social distancing. And quite honestly, one of the benefits, if there is a benefit of what we've gone through, is the advancement of our ability to provide services through the internet, through WebEx, through Zoom meetings. Steve and his staff can attest to how many permits get filed online now And it'll be interesting to see how many of those contractors come back and want to do the counter work. So, you know, you're saving yourself that time.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think it's going to be that new adjustment as we move forward. And I can't think of a single case that we haven't been able to address some residents' needs or provide that service even in today's environment. You know, the outside services are there, you know, snow removal, police, fire, EMS, roadway maintenance, engineering, home inspections, or not inspections, but the building inspections. And even accommodating folks who say, I want to get my garbage sticker for the brown tubs. They'll call, they'll email, we'll mail it out to them. There's times where we've met them at the front door and gotten the stickers for them. So that's just one example. So we have a nice arrangement with UPS and those folks, they drop it off, they ring the doorbell. It works. We've accommodated and it works. So I don't think we've missed too much, quite honestly.
Well, it's just good to have the discussion.
Okay, I've got a follow-up question. When the 5% number that you're looking at, was that like all of Polk County, Urbandale? What were 5% number
Yeah.
are you looking at? I mean, I think June 1st makes sense, but when those emails come out every day, I look at them and see what the numbers are at. And what number are you looking at to determine what that 7-day average?
We look at the Polk County number.
The whole Polk County?
Yeah, because when we established that, of course, given the split county and everything, when the mayor and I had that discussion, it was, we're going to use Polk County.
Okay.
It was kind of one of those out of the gate saying, we got to come up with some determination, so.
No, I think
We
that
thought
makes
that was
sense.
well, and then I know the mayor ran our strategy by the Polk County Health folks.
By
and-
Helen Eddy at Polk County Health.
And they were very supportive of that. And
So,
again,
Yeah, to clarify, it's the 14-day positivity rate must be met for 7 consecutive days.
Okay.
So the 14-day rate has to be below 5% for 7 consecutive days before we would do that.
yeah,
Okay, thanks.
you're welcome.
The problem with that criteria is that as people get vaccinated, they stop getting tested anymore. We used to get tested before and after
I understand.
we traveled. We don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
And so I think if I'm fine with it, that's what we picked. Let's see, but I think it's becoming less and less accurate of whether or not we have a problem just because of the changing dynamics.
No, I understand. And that's been discussed before. Adam's brought it up before too. It's a relevant point. So you have to look at if we need to modify it, but I think we're down to that point anyway. It's right around 5% anyway, so I think.
Yeah, we're close, and I also think people's perception, if we're open June 1st, is probably going to be fine.
Yeah, and I think that's consistent with what other cities are doing too, so.
What we're seeing and what I'm hearing from my counterparts is that mid-May, late May, 1st of June, I think we were all geared toward looking at sometime in April when there was some significant reductions. And then again, you saw some surges, you saw some numbers that really weren't moving. And I think there is validity in what Councilmember Pogge said, is that more people have gotten vaccinated, less people are getting tested unless they feel that there's been an exposure. And there's only one Test Iowa site in Polk County now, where there used to be 5 or 6. So again, and there's lots of different outlets that individuals can seek for testing. So again, it's just the evolution of the process, and I think we're going to get there sooner than later. But if we're looking at June 1st, unless there is a significant blip that goes the wrong direction, that's kind of what we're going to try to gear for.
And then last was July 4th. We were talking 2 weeks ago, we were just making a decision, or I think you were going to meet with the 4th of July committee and make some sort of a decision.
Well, yeah, I've communicated with them. I haven't talked to Larry anymore in the committee, but I I communicated our assent to essentially what they want to do. So, it's them to make the final decision. I haven't heard anything more. I don't know if Annika has said anything more from her standpoint.
I haven't heard anything from our staff. We have a member of the police department and the member of the community development department that are on the 4th of July committee and are assisting. And haven't heard anything more except that the parade will be on Saturday, the 3rd. They're still planning on a carnival and of course the fireworks. So,
And there was a concern from the committee as far as funding for that because we didn't have a hotel motel allocation, but we have funds reserved. So I did, we'll make sure that happens, so.
yeah, we just need a formal request for them for the paperwork.
Yeah.
And they know that.
And they know that, yeah.
Okay.
So,
And you still get button number 1, right?
that's right, and they're going to be at the next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, they plan to be at the next meeting. I got a text message from Ray Main, so they plan to be at the next
So we
meeting.
need to bring our money.
Bring your money at the
cash?
next meeting, yep.
Cash, yeah.
Yep, they plan to be here at the May 4 meeting, so.
Oh, all right.
Great. All right, anything
That's
further?
it, thank you.
All right, Adam?
I think my first ever city council meeting was when my dad was on the 4th of July committee and came to sell buttons to the 4th of July and request permission of the streets. So I'll look forward to next meeting when they're here and I'll gladly buy my button.
How old were you, Adam?
I was probably like 5th grade or something. So that probably says more about me than anybody else.
I was thinking, I thought Big Al was on here earlier, but I think he signed off already, so I was gonna.
Yeah, it's like when your parents come to your soccer game. Right? Yeah. I have nothing else except it was an absolute ball to get to rake some leaves with on Saturday, so I really enjoyed it. Thanks, Bridget, for organizing it and for putting us for getting us out there.
Absolutely, thanks. All right, I just have just very few things too. Bridget mentioned the Polk County Housing Trust Fund and the Commercial Real Estate Forum on Thursday. On that, the exact same time, I'll be participating on the Homeless Coordinating Council. It's just kind of a follow-up to the discussion we had with Melissa at the lunch and learn. Actually, I was asked by Councilmember Trimble from West Des Moines to be on that. They're trying to broaden the representation. I think it's good that we have representation there and have that continued dialogue on the homeless situation. So I'll be participating in that on that day, and I'll report back anything I learned from that. I think that's all I had right now. So with that, ask for a motion and a second to adjourn.
I move to adjourn. I move to adjourn.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for using WebEx. Visit our website at www.webex.org.